For me, unstoppable is not a word, it's a lifestyle. Okay. Someone who's operating in unstoppability had major adversity thrown at them, and they chose to keep going anyway. Plain and simple. It goes back to King David.
Yep.
Got a guy trying to kill you.
Yep.
Got a guy trying to like rage you. You got a guy who's like, it just, again, you're going to be made king or queen in the cave, not in out front. So when I first created the Unstoppable show specifically, the idea was to not have to get so lost in my story all the time. Because as you know, as a thought, you tell the same stories over and over again. You're like, okay, I'm like a thousand
like, not
times,
me, not
like,
me.
you know, kind of thing. It was a way of bringing insight and empowerment and influence from other like-minded people who had been through major adversity, but have accomplished great things to date. But more importantly, all of these people share a certain level of humility in common, which was key to me. So that's kind of where I kind of created that unstoppable mentality, because again, it's a lifestyle. Someone who's trying to pursue an unstoppable life, they have a routine. They have things that they do in and every day. They're very intentional about who they partner with, associate with. They're very intentional about how they handle their finances. They're very intentional about how they raise their children, how they operate in a spousal marriage. They're just very intentional people. Those that remain stuck more times than not, every time I dig into it, it's because they're not being intentional. They're not choosing to take a step towards financial freedom. They're not choosing to take a step towards building the business they've always wanted. They're not choosing to reconcile with their spouse. They're not choosing. And you can't make everybody come to the table. You can only handle your own business, so to speak. But the reality is an unstoppable life is nothing more than a life that's consistently making progress, regardless of the circumstances in and around them. So for me, again, unstoppable is not a word. It is a lifestyle. And if you look at all the different things that I've been through myself personally, I've been through homelessness. I found my mom's attempted suicide. I was the one that found her. I've been through embezzlement. I've been through numerous business reversals. I've been through down economies, COVID, 2008, divorce, like all of these different things. None that I would have chosen on my own to go through. But all of them help create the man that you have been so politely admiring about humbleness and whatever. And it's because the crushing does that. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. I had this lady that was kind of a prophetic voice in my life. This is 2017. I'm coming in. I've been preparing for 8 months for my first 3-day live event called Transform You Live. The first time we were ever going to do it. And the night before, I have a team member from one of my other businesses reach out to me and proceed to tell me that my management team was going to try to take my business out from under me. Okay. And not only did they try to do that, they tried to go to the marketplace and slander me and say we were going bankrupt, which none of it was true. Right. And in that moment, I was like, Lord, what did I like? All I want to do is serve and help people. What the heck? Like kind of thing. And I'll never forget this. I had a choice that night. Do I cancel the event? Do I refund all the tickets? What do I do? I chose to go ahead and show up for the event, but I'll tell you, about 3 minutes before we went lights, camera, action, this prophetic voice walked in to me, and I see her immediately, and she's an old African American lady, or not? Oh, she's not old, but she's an African American lady with just a big heart for Jesus and the whole deal. And I looked at her, and I just like started getting ready to start weeping.
Yeah, of course.
And she sticks her hand up. She goes, "Oh no, honey. Oh no." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "This is the cost of the calling. You can't get to where you're supposed to go without going through here. You have to go through here." So I challenge your audience to look at their own life, look at the things that they're avoiding, that they know they need to take care of, and see if it's the cost of their calling. At any point in time, David could have given up being king in the cave, in the palace, after Bathsheba, whatever. But he chose to repent often. He chose to pursue excellence. He had certain choices have consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
But he never let the consequences define him.
Yeah, that's good.
He let his relationship with God define him. So I say all that to say, what if the thing that you're afraid of, the thing that's standing in front of you, the thing that's like you think is holding you back, it doesn't matter if it's a business related, it doesn't matter what your adversity is. What if your blessing, the thing that God created you to do, is on the other side of that thing. Okay. What if that is the cost of your calling? Okay. I'm telling you from personal experience, pay the price. Pay the price. I will tell you that in that moment in 2017, before I went through all the ramifications of the embezzlement and, excuse me, suspected embezzlement, all that kind of stuff, I went to her house 3 months later, sitting in her study, if you will, and I was
Yeah.
weeping.
Yeah.
And and I said, you know, actually, let me share this with you real fast. When I was on stage before that moment, I craved it. I wanted it. I want to be on stage. I want to be talking to, 10,000 people, blah, 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 blah,
Yep.
whatever. And I'm telling you that out of transparency. I
Yeah.
straight up wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a big deal, right? I didn't know at the time I wanted to be a big deal because I wasn't a big deal to myself. Like I wanted other people to do that. Fast forward 3 months after that moment, I'm sitting down in her study and I'm like, if this is what it takes and this is what it costs, I don't want the stage. You can have it. You know what the lady said to me? She said, great. Now you're ready.
Now you're ready. Like you opened up all the stages with that heart.
And now
Oh my
you've seen
God.
what God, we
I
have,
have.
I feel like we're only on the beginning of what God has done thus far
Yeah.
and what I hope he's about to do.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the Moses in the cave moment. I'm coming out of the cave.
Yes.
So.
It's so good. Well, and I mean, obviously, even coming down from Mount Sinai with Moses, like the radiance, right? And so that was what I loved watching you, like in the shadows of what you were doing. And I didn't know that you were somebody who also is like backstage, side to stage, formulating the stage, built the stage, and also is made for the stage. And so it was really cool to learn and experience you that way versus having heard you on your show or met you when you were the speaker at a keynote of any event, because you've done all of those things. But I love that what you were actually being sharpened and shaped to do is create stages and experiences for all of these other people who are also in that place of unstoppability, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that it just ignites me. It inspires me. You're speaking right to me in just a scenario that I'm walking through where I'm just like, I kind of want to give up. Like there's moments where I'm like, this is so overwhelming and there's 1,000 irons in the fire. And which one do I give up when I love all of them? And then which one do you give up when it's helping so many people? And what do you do when you just want to stay home and cuddle with your kids instead of go travel to speak on stages? And like all of the friction and the tension and the things that happen alongside building a business that is a ministry. And so you're like literally just like deposit Tamra, deposit Tamra.
Yay.
And the Lord told me this morning 2 things after I was spending time with him. He said, listen, and I literally looked at my schedule this morning, starting at 7:30 to 6:30. I had back to back meetings, one of which you knew I had to extend that meeting so I could jump right on here. So he said, listen. And then he also was asking me and prompting me the question, what if? And so the fact that you just are like, what if this is the cost of the calling? I mean, y'all, I love podcasting so that you guys can listen to it and all those things, but this one was for me. So I appreciate you so much. And I want people to just hear the pressure. Like it comes from all sides, but really that's how a diamond is formed, right? The threshing floor, that is how the wheat is made. You have to go through the threshing floor for there ever to be the succulence of bread. And so I forget that sometimes when you're the one in the receiving end of like, this actually hurts. This sucks.
Yeah.
But there's so much beauty. Like my husband just called me right before we got on here and he's like, how are you? And he knew that I had a really hard morning. And I was like, I'm good. And he's like, how are you really? And I was like, I'm actually good. I'm like, there's so many blessings. I'm looking at the weeds in our yard. And he said, yeah, but instead of pulling weeds, we took the kids to the water park this weekend. Instead of doing these things that like are minuscule and maybe the world thinks are important, you got to do this and spend this time and do these things with at the side of your grandpa when he's passing away, right? Like there's just blessings. But we have to be willing to take the beat to understand that those blessings are a part of what propels us into big, scary, hairy places.